It's City who once again leave Old Trafford with 3 points. In this time, it was a pretty evenly contested first half, but Bernardo Silva's goal just after the break really defined the game. From then on, it was really one-way traffic. Sane getting City's second, as Manchester City then, with 3 games remaining, go top of the table, 1 point clear of Liverpool. The one glimmer of positive news for Manchester United today is that Arsenal lost against Wolves, which means you could, but maybe it's an argument that they can finish in the top 4. We'll discuss that a little later on. But let's start off, shall we, with this game. It felt a bit weird, I thought, the second half, because it was just kind of, oh, it's done. You never really felt United were going to get back into it.
No. I mean, it's not a shock. There's nothing strange or shocking about this result or performance. I mean, it was better than the performance. It was, from the outset, it was going to be a defensive performance with a counter-attacking style. It was better than Everton. That's where I'm at, which was abysmal. It was somewhat competitive in the first half. But a lot of that was down to the fact, in my opinion, that Man City were way off the pace of what they needed to be. Yeah. I mean, Guardiola was getting frustrated in the side and the passes were going adrift and it wasn't their usual style. And okay, some will say, well, that Man United sort of put them off. I don't think so. I don't buy into that. Not many have been able to do that to Man City. But when they come out in the second half, clearly, we talk tactics, we can talk everything. You can talk about the good old kick up the backside. That's what I think City got. Sharpen it up. Get the passing quicker, get the movement quicker. Let's 1 and 2 touch and we'll open them up. And once they got the goal from the excellent Bernardo Silva, it was as I expected, men against boys. There's a huge gulf between these two football teams. I don't think we needed today to actually formalise that.
I thought, given everything at stake, a lot of people would have been on the edge of their seats in the first half. Not that the football was that great, but because it meant so much. And because, despite the possession, I don't think City created all that much. David de Gea didn't have an awful lot to do in the first 45. That being said, nor did Edison. And then all of a sudden, the second half comes on and it comes around. And with the halftime team talk, with Sane coming on for Fernandinho, who, listen, you'd prefer to have Fernandinho in your team every single day of the week. But I also feel that Leroy Sane gives you added punch up front, which I thought City were lacking. And then the goal comes. I think it's a little bit of a goalkeeping error, and we'll get into that in more detail, I'm sure. And from then on in, just the one chance that fell to Lingard at the far post, but Manchester United didn't have an awful lot to offer, and you knew from that point there was only ever going to be one winner. It was just a matter of how much.
I heard a little bit in the commentary that we were listening to anyway, and I don't know how much this phrase has been used, but I kind of feel some might be using this as well. The effort was there.
Yeah.
As if that's some sort of reason to put a badge on. The effort was there. There was more desire than there was at Everton. Well, is that not a given week in, week out? For any professional footballer, we can all have bad games and have had bad games, but you like to think you at least go out there and you roll your sleeves up and get on with it. So that's no sort of badge of honour for this defeat as well. We tried harder than we did at Everton, but ultimately, I think it comes down to the fact, you talked about one glimmer of hope for Man United was Arsenal. I don't see it. I think Man United can only look at themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's now 7 defeats in the last 9 games. It's an utter embarrassment.
It is embarrassing that we're talking about Manchester United and applauding their effort in a Manchester derby, as if Craig says it's a badge of honour. This is Manchester United we're talking about, and we're not sat here and they've lost 2-0 at home. Nobody's surprised. Yeah. It's not a shock anymore. This is how far they have fallen.
Let's be clear here. We aren't applauding their effort. I mean, as Craig rightly says, we're talking about Manchester United here. And just to suggest that effort is what's needed or what's been lacking, I think is disingenuous to a United team that I think we're unanimous in thinking are a bang average Manchester United team. And you see that, how they play, you see that in terms of when Solskjaer tries to change things and who he brings off of the bench, and one of the most expensive footballers in world football, Alexis Sanchez, is giving you absolutely nothing. You don't know where the goals are going to come from. You don't know where any excitement is going to come from. Rashford himself looks a shadow of how he looked 5 or 6 weeks ago. And you can say that about everybody up and down this United team. It's a desperately poor side. And as much as you're still within touching distance in the top 4, you're asking other people to do favours. But was it 5 losses in the last 7? You need to start doing yourself a couple of favours.
7 in the last 9.
7 in the last 9.
With Chelsea coming up. They're not a great
it's
side.
Extraordinary yin and yang from what we saw when Solskjaer initially came in. That bump. Everyone's playing with a smile on their face. Everyone's playing back in the positions. They're happy. It has literally gone from up there to rock bottom. Just like that. And it begs the question once again, and we asked it when the contract was given to Solskjaer, why did you not wait until the end of the season?
I understand the new manager bump, and I completely understand that it returns to normal after a certain amount of time. And you know, I was never, and this has been well documented, I think the due diligence should have been way deeper and way longer to find out the long-term manager for this football club with the experience to rebuild it and use the finances and scout the players and work with a director of football. And I have nothing against Solskjaer whatsoever. He came in at a difficult time. He did some very good stuff, but we're back to normal here. And I was never in the camp of, well, you had no choice but to give him the job. That's the biggest cop-out, because the fans say you can't listen to the supporters when you're making a decision on a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar company who have got shareholders. I mean, Ed Woodward might be a fantastic chief exec at making money for owners and shareholders, but he's been a disaster at decision-making on the football front so far. And there's no sign, by the way, that that's going to change.
Well, they've spent $850 million since Ferguson left. And yet we're looking here in the summer, and you could probably count on one hand the players they should keep.
But the efforts have been good. No, in all seriousness, I absolutely understand, and I totally agree with you in everything that you're saying, Dan. And to that point, I think the big question about this team is not even who do you keep, but how do you change their approach? If you just look at the body language of any number of those players out there and compare and contrast that to how it was a few weeks ago, Marcus Rashford, who wasn't getting, in my opinion, a fair shake under Jose Mourinho, looked a player reborn in the early days of Solskjaer. Now you look at him in this game, and he seems... His body language is all wrong. He seems disinterested. He seems angry with everything that's going on around him. You can say just the same about any number of others, including David de Gea, who has been Manchester United's...
You felt he was at fault for both goals?
For both goals. I feel that David de Gea has been Manchester United's most important and best player for at least the last 5-6 years. All of a sudden, this contract dispute, speculation about him going in the summer, I feel his heart is already set elsewhere. And he's had a dip in form. And when you lose that enthusiasm for your employers, when you have that dip in form, it's hard to get it back.
Just talk us through the problem with the 2 goals, Shaq.
Okay, the first goal with Bernardo Silva, granted, he takes it very early, very little backlift, but that beats David de Gea at his near post. And when that happens to a goalkeeper like David de Gea, you're thinking it goes through a defender's legs or something of the sort. But when you see the replay, he has a very clear view of that. He sees it all the way, and David de Gea of last year would have thrown his cap on that. The second goal is there for everybody to see. And as much as Leroy Sane is clean through 1-on-1, he hits it nearly straight enough at David de Gea, who's done well with his feet of late and throws a right leg out at it when it was there to use your hands and save. And in the end, he caught himself in between using his foot, using an outstretched arm. It goes right between the two. It's a poor error at any standards. It's even poorer when you consider that David de Gea is considered the world's best just a couple of years ago.
I wonder where his head is with all that's going on in the contracts and stuff. It just seems it's clouded and he's not playing as well as he was, because we know he's a great goalkeeper. But I said in yesterday's show, not one Man United player would get in the Man City team if we combined one of these crazy teams. Not one player. Not one. There's only 2 or 3 of them, at most, would get on the bench.
Yeah.
For City.
Yeah, that squad.
Right? There's only 2 or 3. There was not one would get in the 11, and only 2 or 3 might sneak onto the
What would you say, Rashford, De Gea,
Rashford,
Pogba?
De Gea, Pogba. And I'm pushing it that, on the bench. The other side of the coin, and I've changed my mind on this. I have changed my mind. Man United, here. Liverpool and Man City at the moment, up here. That's just domestically before we get to Europe. I think Pochettino is absolutely better off staying away from that job.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Arm's length. Stay at even if he doesn't get the money that he wants at Tottenham, he's better off out of Man United, the way they've been run, with this playing squad, and where they are in contrast to the other top teams in England, and I include Tottenham. In some sense, giving Solskjaer the job has probably done Mauricio Pochettino a favour. Because that's how bad they are in terms of where they want to be and where they need to be.
For more, sign up now for ESPN Plus.